All right, so it looks like things are kind of slowing down. So first of all, I want to say thank you so much all for coming today. I'm going to make a couple of quick announcements before we get started. First, please note that all attendee mics will be automatically turned off, but this does not in any way mean that we do not want you to ask questions. Please do that. So we're going to ask you to use the chat feature to ask questions of my colleagues, some other academic advisors who are here today. If your question doesn't contain personal information and you feel comfortable posting it in the chat to everyone, please feel welcome to do that. If you would prefer that your question be asked and answered privately, what we would ask you to do is select one of the people labeled as a co-host in the chat. That will be one of my fellow academic advisors, and they will answer your question privately in the chat. Do note, please, that when you are using that dropdown and selecting someone who is marked as a co-host, I will introduce myself in a moment, but I am Caitlin Lester. Since I am not great at multitasking and talking and typing, I would ask that you not select me when you're posing a question privately in the chat, just because it may take a while for it to be answered if it's posed to me. One other thing we would note, we are going to make an absolute and complete effort to answer all of those questions that are posed in the chat. If your question doesn't get answered today, though, we do ask that you send us an email with your question at academic_advising@ltsc.ucsb.edu, and that email will be available again at the end of this presentation. All right, thanks again for coming, and we're going to get started. So this is our very first in the academic FYI series, part 1, the basics. My name is Caitlin Lester. I am an advisor in the College of Letters and Science Academic Advising Office. You'll see my contact information there. You are always welcome to email me, particularly if you have questions about the presentation today. One thing I would like to note, an additional short announcement. As I noted, I am an advisor in the College of Letters and Science. The information here today, a lot of it's going to be pertinent to students across all of the colleges, but some will be more specific to students who are in the College of Letters and Science. So if you are a student in the College of Engineering or the College of Creative Studies, by all means, you are welcome to stay and continue with this presentation today. But we would recommend that you do reach out to the advisors in your college to ask about any college specifics to make sure you're getting accurate and pertinent information that is specific to your college. Sometimes certain forms, deadlines, guidelines, etc., can be college specific. Okay, so as I noted, I am an advisor in the College of Letters and Science. It's actually kind of important that when I say I'm an academic advisor at UCSB, that I point out that second part, where I'm an academic advisor. Because there are many different types of academic advisors and counselors on campus at UCSB. In fact, in a structure that might look a little different than what you may have experienced in high school, or if you're a transfer student from a community college, it's very likely that you are going to be working with, at minimum, 2 different academic advisors while you're at UCSB. One of them will be an advisor in your college, and we'll talk a little bit about what we do in just a minute. And one of them is probably going to be an advisor in your major, or major and minor. Ultimately, you do decide to major, double major, or major and minor. So what kind of questions would you go to a major advisor for? Well, major advisors are going to answer department and major specific questions. So those might be questions about a pre-major or pre-major GPA. Those might be questions about transferring credit from another school to fulfill a pre-major or major requirement. They might be questions that have to do with how to pair certain classes or a proposed schedule that is recommended by the department. They might also be a matter of questions about catching up. If your major is one that's really sequence heavy, those might be things that you want to talk specifically with a major or department advisor about. Now, a financial aid advisor, you might go to questions if you have questions about FERPA, if you have questions about, I apologize, questions about FAFSA, or questions about meeting standard academic progress for financial aid. Perhaps you have questions about scholarships or fellowships. Those would be good questions to go to your financial aid advisor about. Now, career services, and we'll talk about them a little bit more later. Sometimes I think that name feels like a little bit of a misnomer. They actually do a whole lot. That can also be with regards to major exploration, talking about questions about graduate school, looking for jobs and internships. Services, and again, we'll visit their website a little later in this presentation, is really a great place to go to talk to a counselor about all of those kinds of questions. I've got on here professors in many departments, specifically in the College of Engineering, but also in a number of letters and science departments like physics and statistics, chemistry and biochemistry. In addition to a major advisor, there are also faculty advisors. Faculty advisors are professors within that particular department who also serve in an advising capacity. They can be really good people to go to questions about perhaps graduate school in a specific field, maybe questions about course content, maybe questions about things like getting letters of recommendation or finding internships or research in the field. Also, sometimes you will be advised by your major advisor to also go speak with a faculty advisor, and they're great for those kinds of questions. And finally, you'll see on here specialty advising, and that's really a small thing that encapsulates a whole lot. So within this realm, if you are a student who is part of EOP, the Educational Opportunity Program, you may have a counselor in EOP who's part of one of these specialty advising programs. EOP really has a holistic approach that looks and thinks about lots of factors that impact academic success at UCSB, and they can help you with a lot of those kinds of questions. If you are a member of the Guardian Scholars Program, you would also have an advisor that works specifically with that program. Perhaps you've been using or are planning to use ONDOS this quarter and in upcoming quarters. We do have academic advisors that work specifically with that program as well. Also, if you're working with DSP, the Disabled Students Program, or you're planning to go on study abroad, well, we have academic advisors that work in those programs as well. So as you can see, you're going to work with a college advisor, you'll work with a major advisor, and it's very, very likely you're going to work with a counselor advisor in at least one or maybe many of these other departments as well. So when I say I'm a college advisor, how are we a little distinct from all those other things that I just talked about? Why would you come see one of us? What we're here for is to help you, as it says here, navigate and strategize and problem solve. So one of the things that we were here to help you do, a little bit, we're going to go look at your major progress check and how to run one of those. In addition to major requirements, you're going to see when you look at that a number of UCSB specific and then UC specific requirements that you have as part of your program here at UCSB. We're here to help you understand those degree requirements and also college procedures and policies and help you navigate those. We're here to help you look at different majors, minors, and certificates and how those can fit together and how you can plan for all of those in your time at UCSB. If you have questions about other campus resources, so maybe you're not sure where to go with a specific question, maybe some of those advisors on the previous page, but you're not sure where to start, we're a really good place to start to answer some of those questions or to put you in contact with the person who can. Maybe you're interested in doing study abroad or research or UCDC or UC Sacramento in your time at UCSB. We can help you figure out and plan how those programs are going to fit into your time and how you can plan with those along with your major or minor certificate. If you're interested in a health profession or law after your time at UCSB, we have pre-professional advising in our office and advisors who can help you specifically with thinking about the prerequisites and planning for your long-term plans to join in those programs after your time at UCSB. We have honors advisors for the LNS honors program. Do note that there are also honors programs within many majors and in other colleges. So if you're not an LNS student, I would definitely recommend speaking with your college about an honors program that may exist within your college or major. And finally, if you have any kind of academic difficulty during your time at UCSB, whether you're faced with an emotional or a personal or a health challenge that you feel like is impacting your ability to be academically successful, we are here to help you navigate that experience and to get back on track. So we are a great place to go to for that as well. How can you meet with one of us? For the College of Letters and Science, you can get in the virtual line on QList for a same-day drop-in appointment with an academic advisor. We are open 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, closed for lunch, but open for most of the rest of the day. We're going to go look at this a little bit later in the presentation to see exactly how this works. Most questions can be answered immediately during drop-in advising. If you have a longer question or a more complicated one, so that might be if you're thinking about wanting to do a more long-term plan for your time at UCSB, or you're thinking you might like to change or add a major. Maybe you're thinking about how a minor or certificate might fit in, or you'd like to do a progress or senior check. Those are really good for a 30-minute appointment. You have a little more time to speak with an advisor. I'm going to show you how to schedule one of those in a little bit as well. And maybe you've heard me say both of those things, and you're not sure whether the question you have is good for an appointment or if it's more appropriate for drop-in. I'm going to show you a little bit later that there's a chart that helps you look at some of these possible topics and figure out which may be the best for you. But if you're still not sure, you can always get in the line on QList, speak with an academic advisor. If we think a follow-up appointment would be helpful, we'll help you schedule one of those when you call in and talk with us as well. Also, if a phone call or phone appointment isn't available, please know we are very happy to set up appointments by Zoom. If that's going to be more appropriate and more helpful for your situation, you can email us at the academic_ltsc.ucsb email address that's included there, and we'll help you set up a Zoom appointment with an academic advisor. We can also set up Zoom appointments for drop-in advising as well. So, as I said a little bit earlier, we're going to talk about the basics today. Perhaps these are things that you got to see a little bit in orientation, but you still have some questions about. We're going to talk about some of those. We're going to also look at some other tools that might be that you maybe have not seen yet or briefly had a chance to look at that are going to help with some of your planning, especially as we're getting closer to winter 21 and signing up for classes. We're going to look at a few early quarter deadlines to make sure you're aware of those and staying on track as they start to present themselves. And finally, we're going to talk just briefly with connecting with some resources on campus and how to find that information. In just a few weeks, some of my colleagues are going to explore that topic even more in the next presentation in this series. So, what we are going to do is now watch a very short video that talks a little bit about an overview of gold. This is a great video with one of my colleagues that has an excellent podcaster's voice. And so you're going to get a chance to listen to him talk a little bit about that. And then after, I'm going to add a couple of addendums with additional information about how you might use some of those tabs on gold in ways that I think are really
Hi, and thank you for joining us for an overview of some of the tools available through the Gaucho Online Data System, better known as GOLD. Let's start with the Registration tab. At the top left, you will see the currently selected academic quarter. On the right side, you can see your registration pass times, followed by the first day of instruction and important deadlines like the last day to drop courses, the last day to change your grading option, and more. These are important deadlines that you should be aware of each quarter. Now let's look at the Progress tab, starting with the Major and GE Progress Check selection. Your new student profile is only a snapshot of your work prior to enrollment here, so it does not include any coursework you complete at UCSB. The Major Progress Check is more useful because it will also include all of the credit that you have earned since you started at UCSB. The Major Progress Check shows all general degree requirements, as well as your declared major or pre-major requirements. You can view our academic progress video for more information on how best to utilize Major Progress Checks. You can also view your course history under the Progress tab, which includes all of your UCSB courses as well as any transfer credit applying towards your degree. For any AP credit in community college courses, it will also list if it has been evaluated to give you credit for a UCSB equivalent course. Also under the Progress tab is the Graduation and Commencement section, where seniors can declare candidacy to graduate and reserve a spot in a spring commencement ceremony. GOLD is also used to review the schedule of classes for each quarter and to register for courses during your pastimes. That is all done through the Find Courses tab. Make sure that the correct quarter that you want to search is selected. You can then search by subject area to review the courses that are being offered that quarter. Keep in mind that while you can see all courses offered in the quarter as soon as the schedule of classes is posted, you're only able to add courses to your schedule during your registration pastimes. Also, once you have registered for courses, under the My Schedule tab, you can review and modify your schedule, see courses that you have waitlisted, and view final exam times. Check out our Building a Course Schedule video for hints.
Okay, so that very short video contains a lot of really helpful information. There's a couple of things that I'd like to just add as helpful addendums to that particular conversation. So the first one of these has to do with that registration tab. This is really one of the most important one-stop shops on your Gold to find important deadlines for the university. So as you can see for our example here, if we were looking at spring quarter for this particular student, we would be able to see when their registration pass 1, 2, and 3 are, as well as a lot of other really important information. Now, one thing I want to point out in specific, because sometimes I think it can cause a little confusion, has to do with the last day to drop that is listed on this registration tab. Please note that the last day to drop that's listed on that tab is in fact the last day in which a student is able to drop a class on Gold. If you are dropping a class on Gold up until that date, you will not receive a W on your transcript. Now, this doesn't mean students can't drop classes after that deadline. It just means that they can't drop them on Gold. So if you are interested in dropping a class after that deadline, it was a process that would have to happen through the College of Letters and Science. Again, this is specific to the Letters and Science. This would be a good question if you were in another college to speak with your college advisors about. But what we would say is if you're in a circumstance where after the drop deadline, you had questions about dropping a class, whether that was for academic, personal, emotional, or health reasons, we would want you to come speak with an academic advisor about that process and what you would need to do. We would be able to talk to you about all of your options. It is really important to note, though, that options do become more limited the later we get in the quarter with regards to dropping a class late. So what we would recommend is as soon as you start to have concerns, then speak with an advisor and we can talk through all of your options, especially based on where we are in a particular quarter. My other important addendum has to do with the My Courses tab. As was pointed out in the video, this gives you lots of really important information. You'll always be able to see how many units you're currently enrolled in. If you've waitlisted units and not linked them, you'll also see that those are added to your enrolled units to see a specific total. But one thing that's really important that I think sometimes isn't clear on the My Courses addendum that I do like to specifically point out, you'll see under each class that Jane Gaucho is enrolled in here, where it says grading. So for example, if we looked at the Chem 1C Gen Chem, we can see the enrollment number for the class directly beneath that title, and then grading L. If you are in a situation where you decide to change the grading option for a class, now again, remember, not all classes are grading optional. Some are only offered for a letter grade, some are only offered pass, no pass, but some the student can choose between those two options. That'll always be information you can find in the Course Info tab. If you do decide to change the grading option for a class, what I would strongly recommend is after you do that, refresh your Gold, come back to the My Class Schedule tab, and make sure that that change is reflected where it says grading. To make sure that in fact the change has gone through and the grading option that you would like is the one that is reflected there. Again, if you're not sure if you want to take a class pass, no pass, or for a grade, and you kind of want to explore what might be the best situation for the best option for your particular situation, that is a great question to speak with a drop-in advisor about. Okay, our next addendum has to do with the Find Courses tab. Obviously, a very important and very helpful tab, particularly as we're starting to get close to signing up for classes for the next quarter. But right beneath where you actually do the find search, there's this great button, the course enrollment histories, that I think sometimes students don't have an opportunity to explore, and I like to specifically point it out to explain what you can actually do with that button, because it is a really helpful planning tool. So should you click it, you're going to get a page that looks like this. In the course enrollment history tool, what you can do is take a look at a course in any field that's been offered at UCSB and get a sense, here you can see going back 10 years, about when that course has traditionally been offered. So for example, here we can look at Feminist Studies 20 and see this is a class that has really often traditionally been offered in fall, and at least for the last 5 years has been offered in winter. For core courses within a particular department, like Feminist Studies 20, or perhaps Econ 1 and 2, for many of the introductory math classes or chemistry classes, this tool can be really helpful to think about long-term planning to get a sense of when a course most likely will be offered again. Now, remember, sometimes schedules do have to change and the department may have to offer something differently in a particular year, but this can be a pretty good and helpful tool when you're kind of starting to think about some long-term planning and when you might want to take particular classes. We're going to talk a little bit about another tool that you can use in conjunction with the course enrollment history tool in just a minute when you're looking at more short-term planning, say for the upcoming year. But certainly keep this in mind. Don't sleep on the course enrollment history button. It can be really helpful when you're doing some planning. Okay, so we're going to watch another short video, again, voiced by my colleague, that talks a little bit about the major progress check that was referenced in the previous video. This is probably the tool that you will access and use the most on Gold to look at both how you're making progress with regards to university and major requirements, but also to help planning going forward in terms of what you may still need. So we're gonna take just a few minutes to watch this video and then come back to talk about some more tools you can use in conjunction with this when you're looking at planning for a particular major.
Thank you for joining us as we review details and tips to help you track your academic progress through the GOLD system. Throughout your time here at UCSB, it is important to make sure that you understand what degree requirements you have remaining so that you can stay on track and graduate on time. The Progress section on GOLD allows you to quickly see how all of your courses are applying to your UCSB degree requirements. The Major Progress Check includes your progress towards your declared major or pre-major, in addition to general university requirements. To find the Major Progress Check tool, first click on the Progress tab, and then click Major and GE Progress Checks. This should take you to the Major Progress Check tab and allow you to run the report. It is important for new students to keep in mind that until your new student profile is created by admissions, your incoming credit may not be reflected in your Major Progress Check. You can check to see if that has been created by looking at the New Student Profile tab. When running a Major Progress Check, if you decide to check the box to have your report include your work in progress, then all courses you are registered for, including those that you have enrolled in but have not yet begun or completed, will be included in the check. So if you end up making changes to your schedule, make sure to run the check again for an updated report. The Major Progress Check will default to running a report of your current declared major, but you can also run a Major Progress Check for any other major as well. However, if the major has a pre-major, then you will only be able to run the audit to show the pre-major requirements. Once you move from the pre-major into the full major, then you will be able to run the Major Progress Check showing all the major requirements. Keep in mind that if you are considering changing your major direction or are in a pre-major, then it is especially important to be working directly with advisors in the department. Also, some pre-majors can lead into either BA or BS degree programs, like pre-biology, for example. So in those cases, you should make sure to select the appropriate intended degree program under the second drop-down menu so that you will see the appropriate GE requirements for that particular type of degree program. That second drop-down menu is also where students can choose between the different emphases available under a particular full major. Now let's run a Major Progress Check. Make sure to click Expand All or click on the plus symbol next to the uncompleted area so that you can review details about your progress under each requirement. If you see a green check mark next to the area, that means that all requirements under that area have been completed. A red X indicates that the area requirement has not yet been fully completed. If there is a requirement marked with a red X that you think you've already completed or should be completed with your work in progress, see an advisor right away. If you have run the check including your work in progress, then you may see a stopwatch icon, which identifies that the area will be fully completed if you successfully finish related courses that you are enrolled in. One of the first areas in the report is the minimum overall and upper division unit requirements. Note that the 60 minimum upper division units can count within the minimum 180 or 184 total units needed. For the GE areas, be aware that even if a course is listed as applicable to multiple general subject area requirements, those are the A through G requirements, a single course can only apply towards one of those requirements at a time. However, a course can overlap with multiple special subject area requirements and with the American History and Institutions University requirement. For example, a single course could count towards Area D, American History and Institutions, and the two special subject area requirements, ethnicity and writing. For a course that is listed under multiple A through G requirements, it will apply to the first requirement in the audit unless that area is later fulfilled by other courses. Below the GE requirements, you should be able to see your preparation for the major and/or upper division major requirements, depending on your declared major or pre-major. Be sure to expand these and take a look at how your existing coursework is being counted. Students' major and cumulative GPAs are also included in the report, so students can review where they currently stand towards the 2.0 graduation requirements in each of those categories. You will also notice the university letter grade requirement, which governs how many total units you can complete with a pass grade and how many must be completed with a letter grade. Keep in mind that typically all courses required for your major must be completed with a letter grade. There are also multiple areas related to the different university residence requirements, which relate to how many terms and how many units you will need to complete specifically through regular enrollment at UCSB in those different categories. At the bottom of the report, you can look at the section All Credit Accepted to review all the credit that is applying in the progress check, and you can also see if any transfer work or exam scores are applying as equivalent credit to UCSB courses. Note that if you have received credit identified as equivalent to any UCSB courses, then you cannot earn credit for those courses again here at UCSB. However, the system will not prevent you from enrolling in potentially duplicate coursework, so make sure that you do not enroll in any courses that may be a duplication. In general, it is always important to work closely with both your major department advisors and college advisors for official progress checks and schedule planning. Well, thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to meeting with you.
All right, so lots of important information there about running a major progress check and all of the things that it can in fact tell you. So as you can see, it can be a really important tool as you're doing planning, both with regards to fulfilling pre-major requirements, thinking in the long term about some upper division major requirements, thinking about your pre-major GPA. There's some additional really good tools to help you with major planning in addition to the major progress check. Needless to say, one of those is, of course, meeting with a department advisor or peer advisors within your department. So, as we noted earlier, if specific questions with regards to pre-major GPAs, pre-major requirements and courses that may fill them, doing some short-term and long-term planning specifically with regards to major planning, those are really great things that you will need to speak with a department advisor, or in some departments, a peer advisor in the department about. Also, I would strongly recommend, if you're already in a major that you're planning to continue with, or if you want to explore some other majors or minors, start to familiarize yourself with those department websites. They are an absolutely wonderful source of lots of information. So many departments on campus provide suggested schedules for course pairing and schedule planning, both for their pre-majors and for their majors, both for many departments for incoming first-year students and also for transfer students. Now, those suggested schedules are just those, suggested, but they can be a really great field map for planning your way forward into thinking about important things like sequential classes and how they might need to be fulfilled and staying on sequence. Also, we talked a little bit before about that course enrollment history tool, and I said it can be good for long-term planning, but also things may change. This is another really important thing you can find on your department's website. Many majors have a list of proposed courses for the specific year. So for example, they may have a list of proposed courses for 2020, 2021 this year on their department website. That'll usually give you a very good sense of precisely what they're planning to offer in fall, winter, spring, and in many cases in summer. That's a really good for more short-term planning, thinking about what you're going to take and when for this upcoming year. If your department doesn't have one of those, or you want to ask some follow-up questions, that's a good thing to reach out to your department advising about. Department websites also may contain information about research, about internships, about extracurricular opportunities associated with a specific major. So really, I strongly recommend tooling around a little bit in a department website to see what all they have to offer and what information is there. Another thing I would really recommend using is the UCSB Academic Department Directory. If you Google UCSB General Catalog or UCSB Academic Directory, it's going to take you right to this particular thing. What this is a list of all the majors and all the minors offered at UCSB in all of the colleges. This can be a really good chance to start to look at major and minor sheets if you're interested in a particular major, maybe changing majors, or interested in a minor. Where this can be helpful, as was noted in the video, if you're interested in a major or enrolled in a major that has a pre-major, when you're running a major progress check, that's all that you'll be allowed to run. Whether if it's a major you're currently in or you're running a prospective major progress check to check out that particular major and see if you're interested in it. If you'd like to start thinking a little bit more in the long term or see more about what that major might in fact entail, going on and finding the major sheet on the academic department directory will give you a better sense of the major as a whole and what it might entail beyond just the pre or prep for the major. You'll also find on the academic department directory, when looking within a specific major, all of the course descriptions for all of the classes offered in that particular major. This can be terrific for thinking about long-term planning, especially if perhaps there's a situation where more than one class might fulfill a particular requirement. Well, this can be a helpful planning tool to see which ones might best fit your interests, which kind of training or hard skills or soft skills you'd most like to obtain during your time at UCSB. Well, looking at those course descriptions can help you figure that out. That's also going to include any prerequisites for classes, so you'll have a sense of when you might be able to take them based on whether or not you've had an opportunity to fulfill those prerequisites. The academic department directory will also include links to the department website, links to department advising. So it can be a really important place to start if you're not quite sure how to get to a department website. And finally, there's a little tab at the very end of an academic department directory, in addition to all of these other ones, called Learning Outcomes. This is a field, an absolute wonderful field of really interesting information. What the learning outcomes are essentially the mission statement of a department about what they want students to leave UCSB with if they leave with a degree in a specific major. Think of it as kind of a mission statement for a major. This is a good way to figure out, is that major a good fit for you? Is it one you're interested in? Does it cover some of the kind of skills and knowledge you'd like to leave UCSB with? Learning outcomes can actually also be a really great guide or Cliff's Notes even when you get that inevitable question in an interview. Well, what did learning X major or graduating with X major at UCSB help prepare you for this job? Or what kind of skills did you get? Well, here's a chance to talk about and reflect a little on exactly the kind of skills you did gain in that major. It can also be helpful when you're looking to, say, create a CV or write a cover letter. It's a good place to start. Okay, so a few important upcoming quarter dates and deadlines that I do just want to point out, and we'll talk about them a little bit. On that registration tab, you would have seen, of course, that tomorrow is the last day to add classes on Gold. So if you have obtained an approval code from a professor or are looking to do so, today would be the last day with an approval code that you would be able, or tomorrow rather, would be the last day that you were able to add a class on Gold yourself with an approval code. After that, there would be a different process if you were looking to add a class that would actually happen through the College of Letters and Science. There's another date on there just next week, next Monday, October 26th. What that is the proposed release of winter quarter pastimes and the schedule of classes on Gold. Now, this is the date that has been offered by the department or the office of the registrar. It is subject to change, but we would recommend on the 26th going to check out Gold to see if you have your pastimes and to see if you are able to obtain the schedule of classes for winter when you go into find courses. If it isn't available that day, an announcement will be made, and you should see it show up shortly thereafter. So do know that that important information, the quarter pastimes and the schedule of classes, should be coming very, very soon. The next date you'll see on there, October 28th, is the last day to drop classes on Gold. And as I pointed out, this is the last day in which you would be able to drop a course yourself on Gold, and a class that was dropped by that deadline would also be a course where you wouldn't have a W on your transcript. Do note, as you may have noticed on that page in terms of drops for particular classes, that if you are in one of the entry-level writing classes, it may have had a slightly earlier drop deadline on Gold. If that's passed, you might be doing a drop process through the College of Letters and Sciences, and you could just reach out to us if you had a question about that. Those November 9th through November 14th is when the Pass 1 for winter quarter will begin. Based on the number of units you've completed and some other factors that will determine which one of those dates is the first day of your Pass 1. And as you can see, Pass 1 will begin in just a couple of weeks. And finally, although this is going to happen a little later in the quarter, I do just like to point out that November 20th will be the last day to change the grading option. Again, that's something that can be done on Gold. That's a pretty firm deadline. So do make sure if you're thinking about changing the grading option, that is something that you'll want to pay attention to. I would even recommend that you may want to put a reminder in your phone if you're thinking about changing your grading option to remember to do it before or do it by the end of the day on that particular day. Okay, so we're going to leave this PowerPoint for just a second, and what I want to do is walk you through the websites for a few really important resources here on campus that I would strongly recommend, in addition to some of the other things we've talked about, getting really familiar with these websites. A lot of them are going to have information about how to contact certain resources on campus. Some of them will just also include really helpful tools that I like to make sure students know are there. We're going to pop over and then we'll be back in the PowerPoint. So the first of these, now granted I'm a little bit biased, but the first of these important websites is in fact the general advising website for the College of Letters and Sciences. So I'm specifically pointing here to our advising website for the College of Letters and Sciences. As I spoke about earlier, there's a couple different kinds of advising appointments that you might get. So if you were looking to do drop-in advising, what you would be able to do from this particular website, and again, I'm in the General Advising tab at the Duals website, is if you were interested in doing a drop-in advising appointment, all you would have to do would be to click on the specific link, and you would be able to get in a queue list line. It's after 3:30, so ours is currently closed for the day, but if it was within our regular drop-in hours, you would have an opportunity to sign up, put in your information. When you do that, what will happen is when you become the next in line, you're going to get a call back from one of our advising associates. They're going to ask you a few questions, what your question is, what questions you have for an academic advisor, etc. And then as soon as the next advisor is available, you're going to get a call back from an advisor during drop-in hours to talk about your questions. Again, if you aren't able to have a drop-in advising by phone, you can send us an email and we can set up a Zoom appointment for you within drop-in advising hours. If you are interested in having a longer appointment with an academic advisor, you can do that directly from here, where it schedules a phone, or it can be, of course, a Zoom appointment. To do that, you'd click through here. Yours is going to look slightly different, but you'll be able to log in, and there'll be a drop-down menu where you include information like your perm, what kind of questions you're interested in asking, whether or not you want to meet with a transfer student advisor, whether or not you want to meet with a general advisor, a pre-health advisor, etc. So you'd be able to do that through the advising appointment schedule. And if you have questions and aren't sure whether or not your questions are more appropriate for an appointment or a drop-in advising, you click right here. This is the list that I referred to before about when you might want to make an appointment or when you might want to meet with a drop-in advisor. As you can see, this is pretty comprehensive, so it does certainly cover a lot of things. But if you still aren't sure after taking a look at this, by all means, call in or email in for a Zoom appointment for a drop-in appointment. And if we think actually you've got more questions or a longer appointment might be necessary, we'll be happy to set one up for you then too. Okay, so that's some important information just about how to make an appointment that's available on this particular website. Some other really good information here that you'd see across the top. If you're interested in pre-professional advising, so you want to meet with a pre-health advisor or with one of our pre-law advisors, you can find more information here about exactly what you would need to do. The Health Advising's website will give lots of important information, and you'll be able to sign up through appointments, whether with a peer or with one of our health advisors through that particular link. So that information is there, and by all means, this is a good way to get to questions about both pre-health and pre-law advising when they have appointments available and also when they have drop-in appointments. There are a couple of other really good tools on this website. One of them I like to always point out is the grade point calculator. My colleagues are going to talk about this a little bit more in a few weeks, but here's a way there's a calculator you can use to try and figure out in your particular classes what your GPA might be. You can try out a few different grades, etc. If you would find it helpful to review some of those videos that we just listened to as part of this presentation, you can obtain all of those at Gold 101, in addition to another video that walks a little bit through course search and schedule planning if you want to review that one before you sign up for classes for winter quarter. A couple other really good things on here. Where this says degree requirements, you can find the LASAR. What the LASAR is a list of all of the classes that fulfill a particular GE or university requirement, like the American History and Institutions requirement. So should you click through on any of these, you would see a course list of all of the courses that have been approved for a particular GE area at UCSB. You can also see if they've been approved for more than one GE area, and as that video earlier pointed out, if it were approved for 2, ultimately it would only count for 1, if that's one of the general areas. But you can also see, is it approved for any other special subject areas? Those absolutely can overlap with a general area course. So for example, Anthro 176 could count for D or E, and writing and world. So the LASAR can be a really helpful tool. Now, what it doesn't tell you is whether or not the course is being offered in a particular quarter, but this can be another really helpful tool for long-term planning. And from the same website, you can also find all the forms that we might ask students to present and requests that you might have. So you can see a number of forms here. This would be where you would look for them if you were, say, petitioning for a GE writing requirement, etc. This is where you can find them. Okay. Another really, really great and important website. If you are a new transfer student this quarter and haven't had a chance to explore the Transfer Student Center website yet, I cannot recommend highly enough to go in and explore this website a little bit. On this very first page, you are going to find some really important information in terms of a program event for the entirety of the quarter. Transfer Student Center puts on lots of programs quarter long. A lot of these programs this quarter, or the programs this quarter will be virtual, but you can see there are still many, many things that are being offered during the quarter. Some of the things that are listed on here, for example, would be attending an office hour with one of the peer advisors in the Transfer Student Center. So these are successful transfer students, often in their 4th year, in specific majors, and you can have office hours with them that you may have as a transfer student specific to your situation, and also perhaps specific as a transfer student within a specific major. So if you're interested in those, you can find Zoom information for those there. So this will be a quarter-long calendar for upcoming events. You'll find links for the academic advising for transfer students, for the Transfer Student Center as well. For now, you can find the Transfer Advising email address there. If you are a College of Engineering or College of Creative Studies major, you should speak with advisors in your program, with college advisors in your program. And right now, if you're interested in having a meeting with one of the Transfer Student Center advisors, you can use the same cue list that you use for the College of Letters and Science, as we are all College of Letters and Science advisors. And when you speak with Academic Advising Associate, you can point out specifically that you are a transfer student. And so you can use that same cue list to speak with a transfer student advisor. There's lots of other really important information here. I really recommend looking at the student spotlights and faculty and staff spotlights that talk a little bit about transfer students. Some people have some really, really good advice and talk a little bit about their experience. So by all means, take a look at this website. The next one is the career services. So we talked a little bit earlier about all that career services does in fact offer. I strongly recommend going in and taking a look at their absolutely terrific and informative and comprehensive website. So just for example, under their Discover options, you can look a little bit at major exploration. Under the self-assessment, they offer a number of assessments that you can do to get a sense of existing skills, of existing interests, of values. All of those can be really helpful in starting to think about long-term and careers you might be interested in. That can also help connect to specific majors that may help you prepare for those certain kinds of careers or fields. So this can be another tool when we talked earlier about major exploration. Well, absolutely include career services in that list of tools. You can both use this website and meet with career counselors in terms of thinking about questions that have to do with major and long-term career planning and what may help best to set you up for certain fields. There's a number of other things on here. Some of these have to do with finding research and internships. Some of these have to do with preparing when you're applying for jobs. So doing things like practice interviewing, they do resume review. All of this can be really helpful. If you're thinking about graduate school after UCSB, you can start with this Explore Grad School tool, the grad school tool that will talk about all of the kinds of resources that are available. Again, you can meet with a career counselor if you're interested in some of those. And then there's a very helpful thing on here called career paths. And once you feel like you're kind of settling within a specific set of fields that you think you might be interested in. So let's look at education and human services. If you clicked on one of these, and when you look down, you'll find they'll have some information about jobs within those fields. That again will connect back to some majors. You will see listings for jobs and internships. You'll see listings for events that are geared towards those specific fields. And then you'll see for many of them, a career counselor that works with that specific set of fields and careers with whom you can set up appointments. So a really terrific site. By all means, I'd recommend starting to use that tool as well. And then finally, the one-stop shop. If you're not sure where to start, or some of these other websites they don't stick after today, the one I'd most like you to remember is Keep Learning UCSB. What this is a warehouse, really, an online warehouse of all the different resources that are existing at UCSB, links to their virtual and remote capacity for this upcoming quarter. So what you will see on here, if you take a look, there's some really helpful tools that talk about effective strategies for remote learning. There are also some additional ones down here that are specific to Zoom tips and suggestions, and also Gaucho Space tips and suggestions. So particularly if Gaucho Spaces, that is a very new experience to you, by all means, this can be a great way to start getting some of those questions answered and to talk about some other new strategies, both for Gaucho Space, but also for thinking about remote learning. So by all means, I do strongly recommend tooling around in there a little bit. What you would also find here, if you clicked on academic advising, is if you didn't remember our advising website, and that's a-okay. If you went to the academic advising here, well, you are going to see not just a beautiful banner for our specific presentations, but also a link to advising in every single one of the colleges here. So if you started at Keep Learning, you could get to advising for any one of these colleges. You can click directly through and you'll see their email addresses for, in addition to our advising, for letters and science generally, transfer advising, pre-health, and our true pre-law advisors. Underneath that, you can also find some more information, and we'll click to those in a little bit. where you also might look to academic advising for some of the specific departments. So department websites can be available too. If you're interested in CLAS, you can find information here about all of the services, the many services, and how they are, what they are offering online and through remote CLAS in this quarter and in upcoming quarters. So lots of information here about what those are. And then you can find, if you click through to this, more information about those specific services. It's going to take you that next step to the CLAS website in particular. And then finally, if you were interested in setting up an appointment with with CAPS or with student health, or with some of the other services that exist on campus, or maybe you want to see, is there a service for that? You've got a question and you're not sure where you would go. Well, this is where you might go. So you can link through to this student services window in Keep Learning and find links to all of these existing services on campus. It's going to take you to the very next step to their website. So this will give you information here, short descriptions about each of those resources, and then link you directly through to them. Now, this is absolutely an incredible place to find answers to a lot of questions. Please know, though, that if you can't find the answer here, or you're not even sure if you're looking in the right place for a particular answer, you can always reach out to a college advisor to ask that question too. Even if the question is, I'm not sure who to ask my question of, we can help with that. Okay, so just a few important resources that I would strongly recommend taking a look at and starting to familiarize yourself with over the course of this quarter and certainly upcoming quarters. So just a couple of slides. So these are some of the campus resources that we just looked at. We are going to have a continuation of this series, as I've mentioned a couple of times. In just 3 weeks, some of my colleagues are going to be presenting on Beyond the Basics, so building on some of the things we talked about today. Specifically, they're going to cover understanding repeat policies, using pass, no pass strategically, and building a support team. We'll touch on that a little bit more in just a minute. And then 3 weeks after that, on December 1st, some more of my colleagues will be talking about after the basics, now what? So thinking about major and minor selection, thinking about getting involved in research in your time at UCSB, wrapping up the end of the quarter and thinking about some questions you might have as you're taking a look about how classes are going and what your next steps might be. So these are some things that, based on our experience, we know are questions students often have at that particular point in a quarter, but please know it's not exhaustive. So if there are additional topics you think it would be helpful for us to cover, we are very interested and eager to do so. So you can share your suggestions in the chat. You're welcome to do that as we're continuing on with these last few minutes. But if after this has closed and you've left, you think, oh, I would love a presentation on X, by all means, email us at academic_advising@ltsc.ucsb.edu and include your suggestion. Let us know. And it might not be just one, it can be multiple ones, and we will do our best to try and include them in our upcoming series. It would be really helpful if you did include the academic FYI suggestion or something thereabouts in the subject line for that email, just to make sure it gets to one of us right away. All right, and my some sort of last and final thoughts. Again, here is that email at the bottom of the screen that we talked about. Over the next quarters and certainly going forward at UCSB, really one of the most important things that I would definitely recommend is starting to thinking about exercising interdependence. So clearly being independent is part of a major step as students are shifting into a four-year university. But also a key thing, and what can really be a hallmark of a student being successful at a four-year university, is being able to be interdependent, i.e. knowing when to ask questions and where to ask them. So knowing when to ask for help, knowing when to ask for more information. So start thinking about that and really building your on-campus network. We looked at a bunch of those resources earlier. When you find someone, when you reach out to one of those and you find someone who answered your questions well, who you felt like you clicked with, who you felt like was really helpful, by all means, kind of include them in your on-campus network. Ask if you can ask them questions again, get their contact info, so that you have someone in a particular office or in a particular place that you might reach out to again in the future. If you did have an interaction that was discouraging, if you felt like it wasn't very helpful or you didn't get all of the information you wanted or needed, please remember that you can and should try someone else. So don't let it be a reason to not reach out again. So for example, in my office, there are 19 academic advisors. So if you met with one academic advisor and felt, didn't get all of my questions answered, or I felt like I had more questions, by all means, next time you can meet with another academic advisor. So just keep that in mind moving forward. Many departments have multiple advisors, many programs and department council have many people in a specific position. So it's okay to find someone who you feel like you really click with and work better with. And that can be as part of your building your network going forward. And then finally, if you have questions or concerns about anything, whether or not you want to repeat a class, if you think you're in danger of failing a class or concerned about your grade and it's after the 4th week doc deadline, you feel like you're just having trouble balancing your academics for any kind of reason, really what I would most strongly recommend is seeing an advisor in the College of Letters and Science, or if you're in another college, seeing an advisor in your college to discuss all of your possible options. We are a great first stop shop if you've got a question and not sure where to go. So even if the question isn't perfect for us or isn't the one we can best answer, we're going to put you directly in contact with someone that can. So those are sort of my last thoughts for today. We're going to stay on the chat for a few more minutes to try and answer everyone's question. But again, if you didn't get a question answered today, by all means, please send your question to that academic_advising LTSC UCSB, and you will get a response from an academic advisor about your particular question, just in case it didn't get answered. Thanks so much to all of you for coming today. We hope you'll join the academic FYI series in the future. Thanks very much and have a good rest of your day.